Welcome back to Smart Means Business. I hope you had a really good short break. Welcome back to where we drive your business. I am your host, Gordon Batuma, and I am joined by the beautiful
Ronnie Charlotte here.
Yes, so we're going to get into just a few tips this morning, some inspiration for the morning, because I know a lot of you guys are nearing towards the end of the festive season and you need some inspiration because I know you're looking for money as you're about to go into the holiday. Otherwise, let's get into some tips right now. Welcome back from those amazing tips this morning. I know we're getting into that festive season and we need a little bit of inspiration because as we're getting into the end of the year, there's so many people that are driving while drunk, accidents, people are depressed, they're not where they wanted to be, isn't it, in life? So you're finding New Year's or what they call resolutions, so call it what. So we're in that space where we need that motivation.
Resolution. Actually, you had a New Year's resolution, I'm sure, last year. So on that list that you had, how many things have you done?
How many things have I done? On my New Year's resolution, I asked for peace. I don't know if I had it. I don't think I actually got the peace that I wanted because this year has been a really interesting year, not just for me, I know for a lot of people as well. So those tips are very, very essential.
One thing I can say, this year has been a year, everyone has said 2023 has been one hell of a year.
I don't know, I feel like I've been tested.
Many people, and many people right now feel like, you know what, if I was able to face 2023, then you know what, I am ready to face anything.
Right, and I'm also thinking, do I need to have a resolution this time round? Do I need to plan for next year or should I just go with it?
Well,
what I believe in is setting goals. Exactly, I'm not doing any resolutions. I think I'm just going to maybe set a personal goal for me and set it month by month.
Yes.
If I achieve this month by month, then I know I'm going. Achievable, bite-sizable goals. Because I think that's why we need to go put in a space in a way they give themselves so much pressure. I have a friend who's about to turn 30. And he's losing his head. He's thinking, I should have achieved all of these things by this age. And I told him that's completely out of your control. It's completely out of your control. You're doing the best that you can. You signed up for a new amazing master's class that you're going to be doing. And it's happening next year when you already turn 30. Your birthday is in Jan. And you can't control time. It's out of your hand. You have to do what you have to do with what you have. Because in the economy we live in now, people are losing their heads. They're thinking they should have achieved all of these things by. But what can you do? You can't control time. You are where you are in life. And life has to happen.
Well, that happens all the time.
Right?
Yeah.
But as we're getting into the conversation, we've been talking about the population surge and how it's been affecting the economy in a major and a micro way, right? And we want to talk about the different wealth gaps, especially with the increasing population. We talked about earlier how there's such a massive disparity between the older people, older generation, and the younger generation. It's almost like Tetwe Tegera. None of us seem to understand each other. The youth are looking for opportunity. they're looking for jobs, they're looking for better pay. In fact, most jobs right now, people are tired of just settling. I think it came from COVID.
Yes.
Since the COVID period, we all sat together. We all sat at home for a very long time, Charlotte, and we started with our thoughts and said, but this workforce thing, do I really need to be competing for jobs with this older generation? I don't know what you feel.
I don't even know why you're bringing back that topic of lockdown.
Yes.
I am still traumatized because of lockdown, and you're bringing it back. But you know, at the end of the day, lockdown actually helped so many people understand what life is actually all about, because you know, the highest number of people we have in Uganda, there's a huge unemployment rate, so most people are hand to mouth. So during lockdown, I used to ask myself, these people who used to earn hand to mouth, how are they managing?
How are they surviving?
How did they do it?
It's quite crazy, and one of the things we have to appreciate, despite our increasing population in Uganda, one of the things we are blessed with is amazing food, amazing soils.
Yes.
Just next to my house where I'm at, there's papaya that's growing out of a wall. And there's tomatoes that are growing out of a place that's completely unexpected.
Yes.
This one not planted. You find a rubbish heap, and there's tomatoes, there's pumpkin growing in that rubbish heap. Yeah. There's what's growing, whatever
but
it can.
We used to pick dodo from next to a pit latrine.
Exactly.
I remember in Wayanga, it used to be next to a pit latrine, the dodo.
Yes.
And then the mushrooms, you would ask yourself, where did they come from?
Yes.
No one planted them, but they're under a tree, and there are so many. There was seasonal.
And that is all food. So you find that someone is completely struggling, he picks from the garden fene. There's a whole fene tree, the fene just falls down in some spaces here. We are still blessed despite the increasing population. Of course, now with the increasing population, people are cutting down more trees, people are building more houses. There's not enough space for agriculture. There's so much congestion that now that's going to be affecting us in the next 3 years. As much as we're blessed to have that kind of agricultural prowess, people now are building everywhere, they're cutting down trees. I saw that fene tree I'm talking about was cut down because someone is building a new house in that space. Really? And I'm thinking, my God, the next 5 years, are we going to have any trees left?
Can't they just leave that tree in the compound? They build around it?
In my head, I'm thinking, why? Why didn't he at least, because this is a whole fene tree that's been there for years and years, why would you cut it down?
Yes.
But it also shows you that desperacy, because it's right in the middle of a section. I think they're thinking that middle section of the garden could be a whole space for what?
For parking.
For parking, for a house, for what? So imagine how many other people are doing that if that's just in my neighborhood. Wow. How much more we're cutting down because we're so congested, we're all competing for the same resources. Which brings us to the next topic of the insight, which is the widening gap between the wealthy and the poor in Uganda. We have a whole selection of people who are thinking, I don't have your same problems. I'm not struggling the way that you're struggling. And there's a whole collection of young unemployed youth, people that are struggling, people that are looking for job opportunities. Why do you think we have such a disparity between the wealthy and the poor, the first class, the middle class, and the low class individuals?
I feel like the rich judge us who are not really rich as they are. They feel like we don't put in enough effort. They feel like we don't work hard enough. Yeah. Because when you're talking to some rich people, he'll be like, you know, you young kids of today, you don't work hard enough. You don't. But Amora is looking for a job. Everyone out here is saying they are not employing anyone at the moment. Yes. People out here are saying we are looking for someone with experience of 10 years. I graduated on Monday. How am I supposed to have experience of 10 years?
Do you want me to forge that experience for 10 years? People are now starting to forge the experience. It's becoming crazy. And what's happening, a lot of the wealthy people are also employing their very own people in these companies. Yes. I know this for a fact. There's a company that I went to work for, and my supervisor directly was related to the actual overall boss. And I was like, wow, I am qualified to do that same job that you're doing. We have that same experience. But because there's such an income inequality, there's such people who are wealthy, almost they get from there on, there's such a nepotism that happens as well, where a lot of the people who are actually qualified for the jobs also don't get them meanwhile. You might have your 10 years experience, 5 years experience, and still fail to get that job. Yes. You end up getting entry-level jobs that you're overqualified for. That's another big problem. Yes. Because there are so many of us, people are just picking from the litter to be able to survive. It's such a big problem.
But with the increased population, of course, we know there's a high demand for jobs. And of course, you know, the problem we have here in Uganda, the job creators, that is the minimum number we have. The job creators, Bebatono. And then the job seekers, there are the many.
There are many. I remember attending the Oma Showground in October, that called Independence Week. Yes. And I was fascinated. I keep talking about this because it was such an insightful experience for me, because that time I was able to see so many young people start up detergent companies, soap companies, skin companies,
wine,
you know, wine companies. I saw young people, I saw Luwombo wines. I was there, I was amazed by how many younger people were actually dominating Uma showground space. People are doing bracelets, whatever you can.
Making porridge. There's actually a company that, apart from Anita Fabiola, our Ugandan person who has made makeup, and you're like, yes, that is makeup, good makeup. We have other companies that we saw at the showground, and they actually have good makeup, because you don't expect a Ugandan to actually make something that is quality.
Right.
Because as Ugandans, we have this thing, I would take quantity over quality.
Yeah.
Because I'll buy a top at 8,000 and someone else will buy it at 20,000. And of course, you know, the one of 20,000 is better quality than the one that I bought at 12.
And also because a lot of the local companies don't have that enough funding. So you find that even if Colgate, and you have a herbal toothpaste that maybe does the job better, that is done somewhere in Masaka, that does the job, someone is going to look at it funny because of the narrative surrounding, is that a herbal product? That's not international enough. That is Samona, Sigenagula Samona, that's more of it. Why should I use more of it? You're going to buy something that's top shelf, something that's on the, something that has the marketing around it, saying, I'd rather buy Colgate, I'd rather buy something international, Nivea, and yet might have really good local products. And I saw so many that are really good.
The problem we have with Ugandan products, our government tends to overtax the factories that are opened by the local people.
Exactly.
And then the internationals that come in, sometimes they don't even pay taxes. They just make the product and they sell to us at a price that is friendly. And usually because it has Chinese language in it, you feel like it was made in China, but they've put factories here and they're making these things from here, and we end up exporting. They're exporting back to their countries, but because remember they're leaving their countries, they're also overpopulated. Right. And you know, Uganda is giving them that freedom of doing whatever they want as they come as foreigners.
And that's such an interesting thing. I think one of the things that's increasing on that in the wealth gap, right, the income inequality, is over-reliance on foreign investors, right? We don't have enough of us reliant on our local investors. Yes. At home, I saw some local people who are doing local batteries, people who are doing things for cars, spare parts for cars, they were there. People who are trying to do electric cars, young people, but you can see that they're using very limited resources and very little funding by the government, because guess what? We're looking at the Chinese people coming in and we're investing in them, we're giving them tax holidays. We have Eritreans that are coming on board because they're doing business. We're thinking you guys have tax holidays. Yes. How about you start to educate a lot of Ugandans on business? One of the things I think we need to change is our education system here. Yes. Our education system has allowed us to think in such a limited way. Books. Nothing no, Gamba, I have to work to only work, to work for somebody, as opposed to working for myself, as opposed to becoming a job creator. Yes. So what does that mean? You find that a lot of the foreigners that are coming in have been taught, listen, school is good for education, but you need to diversify. You need to be able to make money outside of this education that you have. So we have Ugandans who are solely dependent on, until I get a good job, they'll apply for jobs for 5 years. But in those 5 years, someone has given him 10 million, 4 million. What has he done with it?
Usually it's nothing.
Nothing at all, because they're thinking, I'm relying on this money to survive for the next job. Yes. As opposed to saying, let me invest in some small farm here, let me invest in this clothing company, or let me invest in Charlotte's boutique, or something to keep the money running, because we don't have the economic mindset, right? And I think it starts with the education system. If we start to educate our children and say, listen, I think there should be a class for money in school, a class solely about money, don't you think? Yes. Money and investment. Yes. Even if it's a boring class, I'd rather have a boring class like that than math, to be honest, because a lot of these investors, by the way, you think they're mathematicians, they learn how to count money. But every other thing like numbers, those are the accountants. They hire an accountant. Of course. They hire a finance person to help him understand the numbers. But he just understands how to count. As long as he understands 10 million gives me this, this one gives me that. That's all they learn on the job. So we need to understand. I don't know, what do you think about that?
Well, we need to understand that part. And you know, Uganda as it is, our schools teach the kids books. If they can at least try and be more practical during these lessons, okay, you have 5 lessons a day. Let one of those lessons be a practical class for the kids. At least let them learn tie and dye, let them learn crafts, let them learn engineering, baking, you know, something.
You've said something important, all vocational studies. Do you remember in school, every time we talk about vocational studies, we looked down on people who are doing vocational, plumbing, sewing,
learning hair.
Like those guys are doing vocational because they don't have the money for an education system. Yes. I can't be doing that. I can't be doing what? Recently there was someone, there was a house I was staying at, and I was staying there, but as well in the process of selling it. So one of the painters that was painting the house, you know, when you're leaving a house, you're selling off some items. So these guys want to say, can I buy that bed? Can I buy this? Eh? So the painter was telling me, Godwin, I want to buy the bed, I want to buy those shoes, I want to buy, and I'm thinking, this guy doesn't speak English, he doesn't even know his birthday. He has grown up in a rural area, but he's a painter. I went to vocational school for painting. This man said, sentence in wano, maker. And I'm looking at this person and I'm thinking, does painting pay this much? And he tells me, you'll be shocked, Godwin, in a day when I paint about 3 houses, start in the morning, I paint, and not the full house, I'll paint sections and I get paid, right? He can actually go home with at least 300, 400 a day on a good day. So if he has at least 4 days of work, that's good money. A person can walk home with 1 million shillings a week as a painter, and this is vocational studies. And someone who's working a real job is waiting for 1 million shillings at the end of what? Of the month. Are you seeing where there's a problem?
Yes.
We have not understood how to really expand on our portfolio. This man bought everything that he wanted, and I sold to him because I tried to price it high to he's like Zirina Center to collect cha. So that really opened my mind to think, Godwin, you cannot undermine any job, especially with the wealth inequality in Uganda, where it's harder to get into the top jobs. We have to find ways to make extra money. I mean, what's your experience?
My experience? Well, I feel like these white-collar jobs actually pay less than these jobs that, you know, when you're doing something that is practical, something that you love, something that you learn when you're on the field, I feel like you earn more than just sitting here on the desk doing something you learned off book.
Exactly. Something that actually provides a solution.
Yes, because I feel like as parents, we should actually ask our kids, before you tell your child, you have to study, be a doctor, does your child want to be a doctor? What if your child wants to play piano?
Exactly.
What if your child wants to be a footballer?
I'm pretty sure there's so many doctors who have worked for so many years and they only start to benefit and retire at 60 to start enjoying their wealth.
Yes.
What about your child by 30? If you had been investing that money and you taught him how to invest, even if he was starting to be a doctor and he understood that I have all these things on the side, why should I wait till 60 to retire?
Yes.
Why are we waiting till 60 to retire in Uganda when we have all these ideas that we can start to have? We need to have more investment groups for people in the rural areas, more investment groups, investment classes for the youth, not just, because I'm seeing a lot of investment classes now for people in NSSF who are retiring. Those are the big classes that are happening. We need to have investment classes for younger people, the younger generation, to understand that, listen, I cannot start thinking with limited mindset. Even farming. I now have friends who are farming, but Ugandans used to frown on farmers. Isn't it? I cannot farm.
These days you find a slave queen who is digging.
Yes.
She's a farmer. She's like, I have my chicken.
Yeah.
I sell my sweet potatoes and I make money from that.
Exactly.
But she has her nails very long. Of course, she'll pay someone to do the digging.
Yes.
But she knows she's getting her money back.
Right.
So it's not about how that person looks and what job they are doing anymore. These days people say, as long as this makes me money, I'm going to do it. And as parents, I feel like if you have a business, even if you're selling tomatoes in the market during holidays, take this child to the market. Let the child know this one tomato that usually they cut half and then they throw the other half. This one tomato is actually 500 shillings.
Yes.
This tomato, I work for it. This money, I work for it. This water that you waste, this power. You have a restaurant. Take your child. Let the child sit there with the cashier. Let the child help wash the dishes, even if 2 or 3 cups.
Right.
Let this child know how it is, so that even if they go to school, they'll tell you, Mom, you know what? I just want to learn to cook.
Yes.
So that you don't put the child into school. Because you remember back in the day, if you didn't have a degree, you couldn't get a job.
That's true.
But most people nowadays are actually looking at working with what they love and what they actually understand more than what they study.
As opposed to trying to pursue a master's, a PhD for what? For who are you impressing?
Yes.
You've made a really good point about teaching your child in the way of the work, right? I stay in Muyenga, and Muyenga there are so many Eritreans that have taken over. Eritreans, Somalians, they're taking over business. You find the Somalians, the ones selling you tomatoes, the ones selling you onions. Yes, can you imagine in your own country, foreigners. But a lot of these shop attendants, many of them have their kids at the forefront. So this particular kid, I'm like, how old are you? I'm like, I'm only, I think 10. But he handles the money, he counts the money, he handles the stock. You know, when the suppliers come every morning, he only pays them. Can you imagine a 10 years old?
Yes.
He knows how much to pay the suppliers, the one for soda, the one who does for bread. I'm thinking, wow, at 10 years old, what was I doing? Chris Obando.
Gogolo.
Eh? Chris Obando, Dulo. Twali tukola Dulo, Checho. Those are
Toko
things.
Toko.
Toko, Chokolo. Chokolo. So we are not really teaching our kids in the way, and that's why there's such a huge disparity in the wealth gap, where the rich are getting richer
The poor are getting
and the poor are getting poorer.
Yes.
But guess what? The population is still increasing.
Yes.
People still want to have babies, 6 to 5 babies. There's not enough family planning because we believe in Uganda, you're wealthy if you have about 10 kids. But if you don't have a plan, I'm all about having children. But are you able to sustain them, those 7, 8 children?
But I feel like over the years, Ugandans are improving because...
By force, by fire.
By force, by fire. Because I remember you would find a woman, she has a 2-year-old, a 1.5, and then a 1-year-old, 8 months old.
Yes.
Then she's pregnant. Then you're like, lady, what is wrong with you?
Yes.
And before you know it, she's saying, Manange, Tatulina Sente, you see we struggle, the money is little. Then you're like, why do you have these many kids?
Exactly.
You being unemployed, does it mean you have to stay home and make more babies, or does it mean for you to go and what? Look for money. Yeah. If you stay home and you say, let me have more babies rather than looking for money to take care of these few that babies, you have. Yes. And then after you complain, government tetuyamba, you have to help yourself.
Don't you have that documentary that Uganda is known for having that lady with the most children in the world? In the documentary, I saw it on YouTube. I was like, I don't even know this woman, but she's already on the news on YouTube. My friends abroad are texting me saying, you have this woman over here with all these kids. But the reason why she has this many kids is deep down in her heart, she believes that one of these children is going to grow up to become a wealthy superstar that's going to take her out of this poverty mindset.
You know that saying that we grow up with Bulimwana no Mukisagwe. So I think that is why Africans usually have.
Yes, so that's why we believe our wealth is our children, right? Our wealth is our children. So we put so much into them. And then they grow up and they leave it, they don't come back, they go to London, you never hear from them again. Yes. But then that was your investment, your child. You have to start investing in you as an individual. Your child also has to be raised as an individual, separate from you. Your job is to take care of the child and guide them, but they're not your saving grace. They're not your nyamba, katinkuzade, you're going to make sure you take us out of the ghetto. That's a poverty mindset, and that's a mindset that's leading us behind where we are not really developing and growing the way that we should. Yes, and speaking of children, you know, with the increased population, you find that the education sector is also affected. So if you remember schools back then, we used to pay 100. 100 used to be a very good school, 150. And of course, with time, it was 250. And when you would tell people you were in school of 500,000, they're like, mama, but now, even in nursery, daycare, the minimum good school you can get a child is above 500,000. Wow. And you know, most Ugandans, many people don't earn that much. And of course, everybody wants to give their child the best quality education. They want them to study. And of course, you know, the government we have the government schools. Yes. And of course, most parents are like, no, the child can't go to a government school. I want to invest in my child and what and what. So the education sector is also affected with all this increased population that we have. It's interesting, right? Yes. That we have to pay that much. So by force, by fire, you have to find a way to pay for that child. Yes. We're looking at some of the statistics here, and it says, according to the report, 10% of Uganda's population is estimated to be at 35.7% of the national income. Can you imagine? So that's quite sad. But we're going to continue this conversation as we go on, but we're coming and going for a short break.